Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another D-Link webinar. Thanks for joining us here today. We're going to be talking through Nuclias Connect and how it can help you better manage your networks, looking at some of the developments that are coming up this year, and a brief look at the end of the presentation at our new upcoming Nuclias Hyper software. So stay tuned for that. With me, as always, it seems at the moment, we have our Business Development and Field Application Manager, Phil Wang.
Hi.
Hi, Phil. Sorry if I took you by surprise then. And across the room from me, we've got one of our account managers here, a voice you'll well know by now, Mark Carty.
Hello, everybody.
So we've pulled out the A squad to talk to you today, talk through Nuclias Connect. So if we start off here, always best to explain what Nuclias Connect is. And as you'll gather from my introduction, it's our platform for managing your network infrastructure. So it's compatible with our series of switches and a series of our Wi-Fi access points. It's not compatible with everything in our portfolio, but we're going to go through that today and give you a little bit more information. So who wants to start, guys? Who wants to do I'm going to hand over to Phil. Phil, if you want to step through a little bit of Connect for us.
So some of you might be familiar with dealing in Nuclias already, because we do have two platforms, one cloud, one Connect. What Connect does is it provides a centralized network management for wireless access points for your wireless network and your wired network. Based on standalone controller, as well as a free downloadable software. It's completely subscription free, so there's no additional ongoing costs. And
my favorite kind.
And the software itself, it can support up to 1,500 devices, and that is actually a huge number of access points and switches that you can deploy.
That's kind of more than enough for the sort of target market where we pitch Nuclias Connect, which is in and around that sort of SME audience. So 1,500 devices is a fair amount. We won't go too much into all of the details on this slide, because we're going to talk more on each of them as the slides progress. But Mark, is there anything you wanted to add as a quick intro before we?
Not particularly. I mean, apart from being a very cost-effective solution, if you're downloading the device, downloading the software,
download the device,
you would install it on a suitable device or a server, and then that way you guys are just maintaining that product on there with the Nuclias Connect platform installed on it. And this way it just helps lower your costs for your customers, because again, as Alan mentioned just now, there is no subscription, there's no annual subscription, there's no licensing to this. It is a self-hosted, self-managed solution, and it's more ideal for people or for organizations with time to do this for themselves and wants that ability to manage a site or sites using and doing it themselves, basically.
Yeah, that's how we've always pitched Connect when there's a choice between Connect and Cloud. Is your IT team on site, or can your IT team be on site? Because although you can still manage this remotely, Cloud is probably the better option for remote management. But
so I mean, just to quickly add on to this, so similar to a cloud solution, it does give you the ability to do centralized remote management of networks. As Mark said, it can be deployed on a physical computer or a cloud server, based on both PC and Linux. But you do need to have a small amount of network knowledge in order to set things up correctly. But it doesn't require you to have a PhD in network management in order to do this. It's pretty straightforward.
And we'll talk a bit more about that when we introduce Hyper later on in the presentation. Who is Nuclias Connect for? As we said, we mainly aim Nuclias Connect at small to medium-sized enterprises. So some examples on here, and we've had some good customer wins in each of these areas. So retail chains, hospitality, education, SMBs and SMEs. So just the normal everyday office. Mark is a bit of the expert when it comes to education.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with different types of customers over the years, and the feedback from the customers are that they're looking to install a feature-rich network management device that's without the subscriptions, without the additional
Ongoing costs,
fees
yeah.
and the ongoing costs.
Yeah.
For something like a small primary school or a smaller school within the UK, something paying additional yearly licenses, we all know what it's like out there. It's very tough at the moment in terms of finances. Schools and government sectors are being pushed to do more with less. And this type of thing helps them. And this can get their smart switches, so things like the DGS 1210 series, which are a range of 1 gigabit switches with 1 gigabit uplinks, added to a network to be centrally managed. And it can get things like the DAP series of access points, again, centrally managed, giving all these devices a some sort of direction. So whether that's through a guest network, whether that's given adding centralized security, all that sort of thing can be done by this. And for education purposes, Nuclias Connect is perfect for that. For smaller hotels and pubs and bars that essentially guest access or access to a Wi-Fi or to a decent network nowadays is crucial. Think about if a hotel, for example, doesn't have a good Wi-Fi solution, that affects you on things like TripAdvisor or other review sites.
You get crucified.
And this sort of easy to, no license, but easy to manage system could benefit you for this.
What's actually great for things like retail and hospitality is that the platform itself does support the various options when it comes to authentication. So because it's got a built-in payment gateway, you can very easily create things like capture portal logins or social logins, as well as generate passcodes and so on.
Yeah, gather people's details and stuff. Like for a hotel, you've signed in on the laptop. They want you to come for dinner. They can send you a text message or an email to give you a special offer whilst you're logged in on the laptop and things like that. So yeah,
and because of the actual network management side of things that the platform supports, on all these different applications, it's very easy to segregate the networks between guests or staff or other traffic when it comes to things like surveillance and so on, to make sure that your network is working as it should.
Make sure your staff has got enough bandwidth and your customers have enough bandwidth, and keep the two separate, because otherwise you don't want people logging onto your full network, as it were. So just a quick example here. So we're looking at a diagram produced for a typical sort of example for a small segment of a hospitality/health solution in this case. So this wouldn't be a full hospital, but it would just be how we'd set it up and how Wi-Fi could work in each of the rooms to make sure that the patients were taken care of, the staff were taken care of, and how to,
and also visitors to the hospital as well.
Again with the guest networks, again with the guest networks. So
essentially, the diagram shows one of the DSR routers being the gateway for the network, and then we've got the DGS 1210 series switches being the connectivity, providing the Ethernet connection as well as the power over Ethernet for that. We've in this diagram to the left of all that, we've put in a DNH 100, which is
1000.
Sorry, DNH 1000. Forgive me there. That is a little device that contains the Nuclias Connect software, and that's pre-installed on that. So that device is powerful enough with the right amount of memory, right amount of processing power to be able to manage a network.
We'll introduce that. Introduce that in more detail in a couple of slides' time. So,
but then connecting that all together for the wireless element, we've got the Wi-Fi 6 access points on the edge of the network, and that's just an overall what we can do on on a decent, on a large scale, we could do
Yeah,
this.
I think the Wi-Fi demands for this sort of scenario aren't going to be massively high. They're not going to need much more than a gigabit solution and a Wi-Fi 6 solution, which is why we kind of pick this. The customer might be, it's the customer, the patient, whichever, might be streaming a little bit of Netflix while he's waiting, and the nurses will be using portable equipment. But this sort of example isn't going to be super bandwidth intensive. So a good example from a sort of from a healthcare solution there. So if we move swiftly on to the next couple of solutions here, we've got an education solution, and the reason for picking the education solution is that the modern classroom is going to be much more bandwidth intensive. So in this case, we put in the high spec controller, a high spec switch to take advantage of multi-gig, and then also a higher spec access point has been placed in several places around the school there. So Mark, do you want to just go through that quickly? You've been the
Yeah, I can
education
go
expert.
through that. So with schools, they demand lots of devices in a small amount of space. So the average school, the average classroom in the UK is between 25 to 35 children. And all these guys nowadays have some sort of portable device, whether it be a tablet, whether it be some sort of laptop, and using a high density 4x4 access point like the DAP X2850 is a Wi-Fi 6 device. This will give these kids very good bandwidth, very good room to maneuver, and ultimately good performance on a Wi-Fi network.
Yeah.
So speed is important, but also the quality, I would say, a signal and the amount of bandwidth available.
Yeah.
And then on the edge of this network, we're putting in the DMS 1250 switches. So this is the start of our multi-gigabit series of PoE switches. There are going to be a few other products added to this series a bit later on. But these are the DMS 1250s were about opening up, freeing up space and pushing data through from point A to point B quicker, and so you can take advantage of the Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 7 speeds.
Yeah, because the DAP 2850 is 2.5 gigabyte, right, Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 2.5 gig ports. I mean, throughout this year, D-Link will be introducing more and more multi-gigabit switches that also support higher PoE power budgets, because we do have Wi-Fi 7 access points that will take full advantage of that.
Coming soon.
Coming soon. Extra bandwidth.
Yeah. The last example here. So what I wanted to do with the last example was show an SME solution. Now, it might not be the most common SME solution, but this company operates in a warehouse and they have a need for Wi-Fi outside. So hence why we've included in this one. They're a company that does a lot of freight, so they want their forklift trucks still connected to the network when they're outside. So in this one, we've included a Wi-Fi 6 outdoor access point just to show that you can set the network up in the same way as we did in the first network, covering the smaller warehouse, but with a higher density access point to make sure that all of the areas of the warehouse are covered, because notoriously warehouses will have very high roofs and the metal and the machinery can interfere. So in the main building, we've got the larger access point, and then in the outer building, we've got a smaller, lower density access point. And then on the outdoors, we've got one of our Wi-Fi 6 access points to make sure that the indoor and outdoor areas are all fully covered. Warehouse Wi-Fi being a little bit more challenging than a standard ceiling height within an office block, as we said, because of all of the moving parts there.
And Nuclias Connect does support roaming, so it is possible to basically do fast roaming between all the access points.
Perfect.
When you're moving around.
Yeah, so that's perfect for things like hand scanners and people that are doing inventory checks for stock and all that sort of stuff.
Great. Just a quick couple of points before we move on. We've mentioned quite a few switches, and we're about to mention quite a few switches coming up, those that are compatible with Nuclias Connect. So there's a number of things to consider when you are picking the right switches for your users. And I'll just go through these very, very, very quickly. Number of ports and port speed. Mark's talked about gigabit. We've also talked about multi-gigabit. So there's many options there. We are now moving very firmly into the world of multi-gigabit, with 2.5 gigabit LAN and WAN connections being much more commonplace and becoming the standard. So Wi-Fi 6, I still see Wi-Fi 6 somewhere as being regarded as next generation, but it's actually current generation now as we move into 5. So we're going to see 2.5 gig and upwards becoming much more popular. Switch and port types. I'm not an expert here, so I'm going to ask one of the guys to talk about the difference between so your standard RJ45 Ethernet ports and SFP, which are optical fiber ports.
So the different
Phil?
So again, as the year goes along, we will be supporting more and more multi-gigabit switches on Nuclias Connect platform. These are not just including the 2.5 gigs, but we do also have a range of smart managed 10 gigabit switches over
10, yeah.
over the platform. With regard to what Alan mentioned, RJ45 and SFP. RJ45 is your standard copper connection that works over Ethernet cables, Cat 6, Cat
5e, Cat 6a.
Yeah, and SFP Plus is the 10 gig transceiver cage that allows you to connect various different
Proper speed,
various different transceivers depending on the distance or the distance that you're requiring to connect. But you do also get quite more cost-effective short distance direct attached cables that will still give you the 10 gigabit connection between the switches. And of course, these switches, especially using the 10 gigabit ports, many of them offer things like physical stacking to allow you to manage the stack of switches with the tremendous amount of ports as a single switch.
Once you get into the world of needing things like stacking and stuff like that, give us a call, because we'll talk through.
Yeah, we're quite happy to help. I mean, this is what we're here for, to help you ultimately get the right product there. So if there is different questions on, the type of switch that you need, or the number of ports, the port types, or even around PoE budgets, and I know Phil hasn't spoken on this one, but more and more devices are using higher PoE budgets, and some of our DMS 1250s, for example, have got better PoE budgets and can support things like 802.3bt.
The latest standard
PoE. We're quite happy to help.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much covered the slide there. The advanced function stuff, it's we mentioned VLANs and all that other stuff. Most of that stuff is in all the switches that are managed by Nuclias Connect. So even at the lowest end of switches, which I'll bring up the range that's connected, even on the DGS 1100 V2, which is the easy smart managed switches, VLANs are available there, as is most of the other stuff. But obviously, as we move up and down the list, you can see, as we talked about briefly there, the first two series, the DGS 1100 and 1210s, they're gigabit. Then we move on to the multi-gigabit DMSs, the 3130s and the 1250s. And then we can look at the DXS. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong here, Mark, but the DXSs would be more of a core switch, whereas you'd be looking at the DMSs.
It depends on the application on them, depending, again, what the customers are looking to do. But these are 10 gigabit. These are designed to shuttle data around the network at 10 gigabit speeds. So the DXS 3130 series, for example, has got 25 gigabit uplinks, I believe. SFP 28, I think the standard is, off the top of my head. Please forgive me if I'm wrong.
No, it's on the slide.
But for a smaller network, for example, like a small primary school, that they don't need something like a fully managed layer 3 switch. A DXS 1210, for example, could perform very well in that role. Or even the 3130 DXS 3130 could perform well in that role. But again, we are quite happy to help. So we're quite happy to look at the requirement, the need, and what ultimately your customer's looking to achieve to help choose the right product for the right job.
I think just to quickly highlight on PoE. PoE is still a very, very convenient way to add not just access points, not just access points, but also more and more different applications when it comes to things like surveillance, physical access controls,
signage,
signage and
cameras.
The switch and also the platform itself will allow you to basically monitor how much power is going through. It's going through each switch, so that you can anticipate in case that you're reaching a particular the power output, and so you can so some of the switches just to add additional power supply to increase that power budget.
You can see there the DXS 3130 PoE budget expandable to 1440 with an extra power supply there. So
I mean that one's basically purely perfect for things like if you have a very, very a very large deployment and you're looking to deploy full Wi-Fi 7 setup.
What about things like screens, AV over IP, things like that?
Yeah, it could be used for that, or it could be used for like big, large PTZ cameras. Some of them with outdoor heating elements, for example. Sometimes they require a separate or their own PoE port for that. So, I mean, the flexibility, us being able to deliver now 60 watts to a port is just is great. It just opens up the different types of projects that we're able to help you guys with.
Another one is lighting. Lighting is also
growing. I see that more and more. Fantastic. So next up, Mark briefly mentioned the D&H 1000 and the D&H 3000. It's bigger brother. So basically, we talked about Nuclias Connect at the start, and we kind of talked about it being installed on a laptop because there is a software version of it available. Now, the specs for running it aren't very, very high, but it does need a beefy laptop, or as Mark said, put it on a server, for instance. But what you'll find with these controllers is these controllers are very well priced, especially the D&H 1000, to be a far cheaper option than buying a new laptop specifically to run this on, because that's kind of what we'd recommend, is that you have a device dedicated to running Nuclias Connect to make sure that it's on and available at all times. So we do give you the choice between software and hardware, and as you can see here, the D&H 1000 works with up to 500 connected devices, 2.5 gigabit ports, USB 3.0 port. I love seeing USB ports on these devices for backups. And then you've got the D&H 3000, which supports up to 1,500 connected devices. Similar sort of thing, but the D&H 3000, being the big brother, has 10 gigabit SFP, so 10 gigabit uplinks. The USB port is 3.2. I don't think that makes a great deal of difference between USB 3.0, but obviously what they're going for the best of the best when it comes to the D&H 3000. So Mark, did you I wanted to basically, because we haven't touched on it yet, and we're going to kick ourselves if we don't talk about the multi-tenancy of these devices. I know it's something you're always keen to talk about on Nuclias.
Yeah, so essentially this is aimed at giving the ability for a network administrator like myself or like Alan, the ability the ability to manage the entire estate using Nuclias Connect. So essentially, you would download a version, an image of Nuclias Connect every single site, and configure all the devices and everything else on there, and you would basically use the D&H 100s to link back into your central platform, so your management platform, and you'll be able to see what's going on live at any given time of what's happening. So essentially, number of Wi-Fi clients, the number of the data going through the switches, what devices are operational, what devices are not working, etc., etc. With the management of the networks in the different various locations, you'll be able to do things like firmware updates and make mass configuration changes. So, for example, if you want to change the Wi-Fi password on all of your sites, you'll be able to use Nuclias Connect and the different tenancy rules to be able to do that. And it's just essentially giving you guys more power to administer large networks using this.
So just to quickly add on this, especially on this multi-layered role-based admin control. If you were,
that's what I was going to ask about. Yeah.
If you were managing it, basically monitoring and managing a larger network whereby you have multiple sites or multiple departments and so on, it's possible to give access to an admin access to either the ability to make changes or ability to see the status of the network. Both on the root level and also on individual site level. So
that's the point, isn't it? You can, on the individual site, you can give control to that person to look, but they can't see what's going on the other sites, which is fantastic
and then
very
at the
useful.
same time, you can also give things like front desk access for someone who might be working in reception that is giving out things like passcodes and access, or time limited limited access to the Wi-Fi, which is perfect for hospitality and hotels and so on.
Great stuff. Access points. So we have a comprehensive range of access points which are currently available on the market. We've seen a few examples in the scenarios that we built earlier on in the slide. So we do still have a number of Wi-Fi 5 access points, although we are really strongly recommending Wi-Fi 6 to people now. We still have cost-effective Wi-Fi 5 solutions, which you can see on there, for indoor options and an outdoor option. Moving into Wi-Fi 6, as I said, and as we've put on, we've got two options in the 2x2 region, the X2810 and the X3060. The X3060 is the newest model, that's AX3000. And then the 4x4 is covered by the X2850. When I say 2x2 and 4x4, I'm talking about the number of internal antennas. And then we've got the DAP X3060U, which is which is the access point we used in the example for the outdoor functionality at that warehouse. Coming soon.
Before that.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Phil.
Let's just quickly add for the series DAP X3060, there will be a wall-plated version coming as well towards the end of this year. And,
yes.
And those are designed to basically fit in
hotels.
Power socket like installation, whereby you're giving not just Wi-Fi into the room, but also additional Ethernet ports and to connect up things like VoIP phones and so on.
That's the 3060W off the top of my head, and they look pretty good. Like the previous model was the DAP 2622, which was very popular for hotels and organizations like that. Wi-Fi 7, because Mark's so excited about Wi-Fi 7, and he can't wait for this access point, Mark's going to give you a quick Wi-Fi 7 overview of the DAPE 9560. I said that very slowly to make sure I got it right.
So this access point is going to be available soon. It should be available by the
Q3.
Q3, I believe, off the top of my head. This is going to ship with a 10 gigabit PoE ports, and that will help customers basically open up the lanes of traffic and allow you guys to achieve the maximum speed that's available. It's going to ship with WPA3 encryption, so that's the latest security standard on there to help you secure or keep your wireless network secure. but it's also opening up the for speedsters, it's opening up the 6 GHz spectrum, the 320 megahertz. So this is in geek speak, it's just giving the
Wider lane.
Much
access
less,
point,
yeah, much
much
less
less
interference.
interference with
Yeah.
different radio waves and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And it will be able to deliver, I believe, a 9.5 to almost 10 gigabits in terms of speed. And we are very excited to get this product. Where will we see, or where will we think it will be used? We think busy hotels, conferences. We think
Yeah.
conference rooms. This is. Not too sure if Wi-Fi 7 would be used within schools, for example, but in individual classrooms. But things like mass auditoriums, things like large, busy universities. Think of stadia and things like that. This is where we see this product being used, and we're quite excited for it.
Or companies that work with very big files. I think
Art studios,
yeah,
video companies, yeah.
One of the things about internet, as we all know, only a few years ago, a gigabit internet would be something quite rare. But with the rollout of fiber, I think throughout the world, especially here in the UK, the government is proactively pushing more and more areas to be covered by fiber and gigabit plus. So it would not be surprising to see more ISPs offering 2 gig, 5 gig, even 10 gig internet in the coming years.
It will come at a premium, but it will be there, won't it? So yeah. So we're not going to go too much into the details on Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 7. Sorry, we will do a separate overview once we get these products in stock, and we'll talk more about preamble puncturing, multi-link operation, and all of the different bits and bobs on Wi-Fi 7. This is the first tri-band solution that we've had for a while, isn't it? So it's going to be very good to get this one in, and we'll provide some great speeds for people there. As we did with the switches, just a very quick roundup here of how to pick the perfect access point for your business. So there's a number of things to consider. We already talked about range quite quickly when I was going through the warehouse solution there, where a warehouse with the high ceilings and the interference that comes from the equipment and metal and glass and all those other things that interfere with radio waves, choosing a higher powered access point is always advisable. Considering the capacity, so how many people work within your office space. If you're a small company, a 2x2 access point would be absolutely fine. If you wanted to cover more people, you could go for 2 2x2s, or you could go for 1 4x4. It's that's entirely up to you, whatever you think's best for your business. When it comes to security, we'd recommend you make sure that your access points have WPA3 on them as standard, as comes with almost all D-Link products moving forward. Support for multiple SSDs and SSIDs, sorry, not SSDs, SSIDs, guest networks, quality of service, and other bits. There are other features that your business would need. Compatibility, whether you need VLANs, and then obviously we are talking about Nuclias Connect as a management system. So we're obviously going to recommend that the access points that you pick have an overarching management system that can help you easily manage those, whether you choose to do it yourself or outsource it to an IT company.
We'll show you in another couple of slides time in the live demo in terms of things that you can do through Nuclias Connect to make your network more secure, but at the same time also use some of the automated or some could say AI functions to optimize your network.
And then I've just included a brief section on securing your Wi-Fi network. So it's great picking the right access point. It's great having WPA3, but then if you make the silly mistake of having password 1234.
Not protecting your Wi-Fi at all.
Not protecting it at all, and we have seen examples of this. If you don't use guest networks, if Mark mentioned firmware updates, which you can like sort of automate or do via the Nuclias Connect platform, you can schedule them. Yes. Using a firewall, NAC, all of this kind of stuff is all second nature. And again, that's what we're here to kind of advise you on. But just a reminder there that don't build the perfect network. Don't build a great Wi-Fi network with some fantastic access points and use password 1234. So before we move on to the demo slide, there is one more quick slide here on what we've called Wi-Fi zone. So this is just to let people know that if you do provide public Wi-Fi, then you are subject to law. And if you are just a coffee shop owner, if you're listening today and you are a reseller and you're specializing in the hospitality industry, we'd recommend that you let your customers know about these kind of things that they can become liable for if they're not asking for these as prerequisites for their customers to be able to use their network. So just a quick reminder on there. We're not going to run through it all unless Phil or Mark have something to point out here. But we'll give this when you receive the handouts for coming to the webinar. You'll have this list which you can review on your own back. Demo time. So now I'm going to hand over control of the mouse, and Phil is going to run through a quick demo for you guys of Nuclias Connect.
I'm gonna just quickly swap the sharing of the screen, so I will be back in momentarily.
There you go. Bring him over there.
It's gonna log into the platform, so you
Perfect.
can have a look. And give me 1 second.
Drag that one. There we go.
As with all live demos, we tend to just pray things work.
There we go. That looks good.
Where's the?
Come back over here and share the screen again. So hang on, and let me find it for you. There we go. Nope, don't end the event. Share.
If I share this screen.
As that dropped off, let me find it for you. Which one is it? No, that one is back up there, yeah. I know, I'm going. There you go.
So hopefully you can see this. When you log on to Nuclias Connect, you do have a very very easy to access dashboard of your entire network. So here you can see in this demo that we have this one site with 54 access points, 93 clients, and 5 switches on your network. And on the dashboard, you can see various activities, traffic that's happening on your network. This is on the access point on the wireless. But also on the wire, you can see both the traffic, the PoE usage across your network. And as I mentioned earlier before, you can keep an eye out on if you're to all the different devices. Can then drill down into different sections in terms of monitoring various access points, wireless client, and also neighboring APs, what might be interfering with your network. And within here, again, you can have a very clear overview of how many clients are connected to each access point. At the same time, should you need to link to each device to do
an individual
individual
look at each one.
Yeah. So without go into too much detail. What Alan mentioned earlier on in the earliest slide with regard to public Wi-Fi, Nuclias Connect does give you also ability to log quite a lot of things on what's happening on the network, who's connected, what MAC address the clients are connected to your network. So that does keep a record of these some legally required criteria for providing public Wi-Fi.
So you're keeping the MAC address there.
Yeah.
Which, perfect.
The same goes with the switch and the switch clients. I think that gives you a sort of a list of all the managed devices. Other things that you could do, you could generate a topology to show how the network may be laid out. You have to apologize that this is not this particular topology that we have on this demo site. It's not been completely laid out correctly, but I think you can see just from the brief example here that you could easily move and connect different devices so that they're showing a more true reflection of your network in terms of what access points are connected to what switches.
This is just a dummy network site that's kind of been set up with us to show this kind of thing. So,
and of course, after you set up the topology properly, and it gives you the ability to export the topology, so that if you do either your customers, or if you do need to get in contact with D-Link in terms of some questions with regard to how to set up your network, or challenges that you may have, it does give us a very clear overview of how what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Same thing with floor plan. You can see it's possible to upload a floor plan to then have the ability to assign access points to particular locations within each floor, each site, to give you a better idea of how if your wireless access points are
optimally positioned. Yeah. So around the office blocks. So.
But it also allows you to see what equipment is deployed at which site.
It's quite handy if you're a network engineer and you're going off to visit a site and you're not too sure where, as long as it's updated, but you could see where the potential switches are, where potential access points are located, and ideally aim to save time, right?
Yeah, it allows you to do that work before you turn up on the site, so you can and it obviously export the images.
Yeah, similar to topology, you can export these floor plans so that it's easy to share when necessary.
Yep.
I think that's the somewhat boring part, because the more interesting part is the ability of these Nuclias Connect to be able to create profiles and deploy them across multiple devices at the same time. So for example, here we have this D-Link network, whereby if I go into the profile settings, you can see what I mentioned earlier with regard to things like user authentication. You can see over here that you do have a very, very wide choice of how you want to give the user ability to access to the Wi-Fi network. So the bulk standard username, password, passcodes. I mean, just to quickly look at passcodes, you can set the duration that the user can have access to the network. I think maximum is 24 hours. And within here, you can monitor all the different passcodes that's been generated, redirect them to certain pages if you were promoting something for hospitality, for example.
That's like when you log on, you get sent to an offers page for a hotel, restaurant before you can serve the internet. You get that on the train, don't you?
Even in shopping centers.
Shopping centers.
Capture portal, as I mentioned, you can have a customizable external capture portal for people to log in. Things like social login. I believe you are able to log in via things like Facebook. Against the platform will then log some details of the client that's connected. One other thing to quickly highlight here, bandwidth optimization. So I mentioned it earlier. You have the ability to actually very quickly enable various different types of bandwidth optimization rules to ensure that, whether it's your network is not hijacked by one particular client or one particular access points. So
that would be the example we were talking about earlier, which would be having a network for your clients and a network for your staff. So you could allocate specific bandwidth for each of those two SSIDs if they were set up separately.
Yeah. So here you can allocate average bandwidth per client connected per SSID.
Sure.
Per SSID. That's throughout the whole network. Each of the maximum bandwidth that each client can download.
So you've got maximum or average there.
Yeah.
I was just seeing the difference.
And the last one is actually quite funny because this is more techy, because the 11ABGN, if you do have quite older legacy devices on the network, they can cause some problem because transferring data to them will take longer, and when each access point is taking longer to transfer information to an older client, it doesn't have the ability to sort of talk to other ones as well. So if you were to limit the amount of bandwidth on older clients, then it protects the clients are connecting on a slightly higher later Wi-Fi standard.
Lots and lots of options.
Lots of different options, not just on the wireless, but also on the switch. Again, the switch is even more, because obviously then you have things like VLANs, ACLs, they're down to port settings whereby you can create
each individual
VLANs on individual ports.
Yep.
And all this, once the profile is provided, the profile will give you the ability to then discover the devices on your network to assign the profiles to. So you can very, very quickly and easily assign a particular set of settings onto multiple switches and access points at the same time.
Perfect.
I can't quite discover here because this is a demo slide, so it's not going to discover anything. But you can see already on the earlier side that there are already quite a number of devices as assigned to a particular profile. Firmware upgrade, as Mark mentioned earlier, it's possible to schedule firmware upgrades for multiple devices at the same time.
4 a.m. Great time for a firmware upgrade.
Of course, you can also do it manually, and you can do this across the different devices.
Cool.
Payment gateway. We'll get these things are actually quite useful when it comes to you can choose different currencies, and our payment gateway through Nuclias Connect, you can use PayPal.
PayPal. Okay. Perfect.
I think things like backup and restore, it's quite straightforward. So you can back up and restore different profiles. In the next slide, we'll show some slide shots of the app, because the app will also allow you to very quickly download profiles of an existing network. I don't know why that's happened.
Oh,
give me a second. I think it might have just logged us out. Mark is laughing now because he was always.
Bear with us a second. This is the beauty of doing a demo live on a demo platform. So we are hopefully just logging back in. There we go. Perfect. Just a brief interruption there, Phil. So it ruined your flow.
So we're back here. Backup and restore profiles. As I was mentioning, basically on the app, you can use your smartphone and the Nuclias Connect app to download profiles to then deploy them or load the profiles onto new access points on for example at a different site if you are on the site. Reports, again, in terms of the type of data that you can get from the platform, in terms of when is your network the busiest, across different number of days, across the hour, number of clients that's connected, as well as the traffic that's used. You can drill down, for example, per hour, the activity of clients, and also traffic, network activity, and also ability to find out, which access points are most busy. I think all this information is useful actually, no, I can't see it here, but it's useful for if you were to want to, optimize your network for whatever reason, to deploy, let's say a more powerful access point at a location that
where would it be best placed?
It's showing more usage than others.
So that's the PoE.
This is the switch traffic and the PoE information.
Yeah. Nice and steady. That's good to see.
And of course, the log part. There's various different logs that the system will store. You do have the both standard syslogs of the different devices in terms of the devices either coming on and offline. Have the portal logs. Things like system event logs, if somebody's trying to connect to the system, or if something goes offline. And of course, with all these logs, you can set alerts.
That's what I was going to say.
Allow you to, for example, here, device log, then you can see, things like the state of the ports being changed, whether it's connected or not connected. Audit logs, log in and log off from different locations. Alerts is a log of all the alerts, but I'll just quickly dig into here. You can see on the systems you will have device management. You can see all the devices are managed by your on your setup, as well as all the unmanaged devices that is still available to be assigned and associated with profiles to be managed. And on the settings, you then have ability to things like customize IP address of where all your devices go back to. This bit is quite interesting because we mentioned earlier that there's a couple of ways of setting up Nuclias Connect for centralized remote access. One way is to get all the devices to talk back to where your Nuclias Connect either controller or machine is. By using things like dynamic DNS and also static IP, you can pre-configure access points to talk to phone back to a particular server, so that once you deploy the access points on site, as soon as they are connected to the internet, they are managed.
They work out of the box.
But at the same time, it's
done that before.
Not shown here is that you do have a single sign-on option where you can associate each instance, whether it's the hardware controller or software setup of Nuclias Connect, to phone back to a single sign-on portal that we offer, that will allow you to then go onto a list of all the Nuclias Connect instances that you have to connect to them, then to be able to monitor and access the system. SMTP server to set up emails for alerts. So here you have the different types of alerts that you can set up.
Very important to make sure you don't have an alert for everything, because if you look at the amount on that log, you're going to get a million emails. So only setting up the ones that you need to have here are important. And then so that's alerts there, Phil. Alerts in the system, so that will pop up there. But then you've got email alerts. So if a device goes down, you'll get an email. So there's two different levels there. Perfect.
And of course, you can set up things like, manually set up things like remote access. This is firmware upgrade for the actual Nuclias. In this instance, it will be a Nuclias Connect hub. So that was a very, very quick run through the platform itself. Hopefully
Yeah.
it gives you an idea of, in terms of granularities of things that you can do in terms of monitoring, but also in terms of the
Well, I mean, you can see the power of the system there. You can see that you can
do a
tweak,
lot. You can do
you
a
can
lot.
tweak the minutiae, and then a lot of the stuff you can do is the bigger level stuff, like creating profiles and assigning different platforms and products and all that kind of stuff to different people, different networks, different SSIDs. The whole thing looks incredibly powerful.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, not every organization will use probably all the functionalities that's within, but for the I guess the basic settings, and also some of the automatic functionalities when it comes to optimization, it can be
yeah,
as easy as you want it to be, but also
as complicated
yeah,
as it
I wouldn't
needs
say
to be.
complicated.
Well, no, but you could look at it and say that it's complicated, but then you can sit down, do a couple of training windows and a couple of training videos, and you'll know off by heart the system. So,
Yeah.
if networks can be very complicated, but this seems to simplify that system down to a very attractive graphical user interface that seems to be easy to navigate. And once you've done a little bit of training on that, then you can
With anything though,
very
we would
powerful.
say if there is any questions, if there is any
Yeah.
queries,
Give
if you
Mark a
guys
call.
need a
Yeah,
little
give
bit
Mark a
of help, feel free to give us a call, because
Liz-
we're quite happy to have a chat. We're quite happy to go through what you are looking to achieve with your customers, or what you're trying to do for yourselves, and we're quite happy to work with yourselves to get that end goal.
Yeah, and if you didn't need D-Link support, there are videos on the D-Link YouTube channel that can talk you through in more detail, and other training available. So, okay,
I'm
do
gonna
you want to
hand it back to you now.
Yep.
So I think, no, I'm not gonna hand it back to you yet.
No, you're gonna.
So-
I've lost the mouse now, so I am out of control.
So I briefly touched upon this earlier. You can see on screen that this Nuclias Connect app is available for both iPhones and Androids, and you do get similar type of dashboards where you can see what's going on in your network. But at the same time, as I mentioned, through the app itself, you can download profiles to then save onto your phone to deploy onto new access points that you might be deploying on a particular existing or a new site. As well as even just simple things like standalone access points. If you go on site, you can use the app to very quickly set up a compatible access point within the same network.
Yeah.
And lastly, to add to this, that easy remote access, as I mentioned already, there is a dedicated site where you can link up each instance of your Nuclias Connect controller, whether it's software or hardware, so that there's a basically single sign-on or single portal where you can access all your Nuclias Connector setups to go into each of those sites, which again could be as complicated. I use the word as well. Could be as detailed as you want, because each of those sites could then have multiple layers within them that also monitor different departments, different offices, different chains, and so on.
Yeah, it makes sense. In this example, Mark, you'd be the expert when it comes to having like an MSP account in this sort of situation, where they've got multiple customers and they're selling.
Yeah, correct. So essentially, as a reseller, I could be or as the administrator for a group of organizations, I could manage the overall arching control platform for them, and then I could have different organizations. I could have field organizations, Alan's organizations as separate branches, and these guys, their data is completely separate. It's secure, so organization Phil and organization Alan will not share any of that information. But then you can add different tiers of administrators, different tiers of users, and you can essentially assign and different responsibilities to these groups of people.
Different levels of access.
That's the one.
Each one.
Think of the word. But ultimately, as the owner of the platform, or as the main admin, I could then use this to just view what's going on in these different organizations at any one time, to help diagnose any potential issues that these guys have, or to make changes as they request. So, for example, if it's weekly password changes on the Wi-Fi for Phil's organization, or if Alan's organization wants to do different guest networks or different payment details for some of the cloud, some of the payment gateway options on the Wi-Fi, we can do that for them. That's not a problem.
And the beauty is it doesn't matter whether that customer is using the software version or the hardware version. It works with both of them.
No. So with the D&H 1000s and the downloadable piece of Connect software, ideally it's designed to be as flexible as possible, and you can have either or running at any time, and it's all just designed to sort of sync back into the central location to be centrally managed by the administrator.
Perfect. So as we talked about at the start, Nuclias Connect morphing into Nuclias Hyper. So what's new about Nuclias Hyper? So Nuclias Hyper, as it stands at the moment, is a piece of software. It's codename or model number DNC 5000. So the same as when we were talking about the software controller for Nuclias Connect, there will be a software controller for Nuclias Hyper initially. Nuclias Hyper extends the number of connected devices up to 2,000 switches and access points, hence why it's aimed at a slightly larger audience than the Nuclias Connect devices going forwards. The main advantage that Nuclias Hyper will have over Nuclias Connect is that it's compatible with all D-Link switches and access points designed for Nuclias Connect, or with the prefix that works with Nuclias Connect, because there will be some standalone Nuclias Cloud access points, and there will be some access points in the DBR range which will only work with Nuclias Soho, which we will talk about on another webinar. As Phil mentioned earlier, Nuclias Hyper is available on Linux and Windows, so it's a piece of software you can download. It does take a bit of RAM to hit the recommended specifications for it. But come the release date, which is planned to be August, you'll be able to download that and have a play around with it. It's free to use, exactly the same as Nuclias Connect. Anything to add, or should we just move on?
Yeah, to the next slide is probably a good one. So,
look at that.
The key, I think the key takeaway for this is that you saw on the earlier slide that it supports some up to 200 SNMP switches, and these SNMP switches are mainly these more heavyweight core switches that within the D-Link portfolio. So on top of the smart managed switches, and also some of the multi-gigabit switches that we mentioned already that's supported with Nuclias Connect, Nuclias Hyper basically adds the ability to monitor, to also manage those core switches that's not currently available on the Nuclias Connect platform.
Yeah, the DGS 1530s, 1520s being some of our, well, the 1530s are going to be brand new. They're going to be coming very, very soon. But 1520s, some of our best sellers. Yes, the DGS 3630s and 3130s, and then the sort of the core DX.
Yeah, these are just layer 3 fully managed switches, and these particular products that Alan and Phil are on about have the ability to help get another layer of power, better layer of processing within your network.
Yeah.
Being a fully managed switch, these things have got some very cool features, OSPF and a few other bits that are in there. But again, for large networks that need to move away from a small smart switch and need the next layer up to be a slightly larger, more powerful managed switch, using Nuclias Hyper, things like the DGS 3130 series, or something like a core switch like the DXS 3410s, for example.
The real powerhouses.
It's a good opportunity for larger customers with more unique requirements to use Nuclias Hyper to manage their network.
So you'll see more and more about Nuclias Hyper as we approach the August launch date. So this was just a brief snippet of what's coming and what it supports. So you'll see some emails from myself if you're signed up for the email list. As I said, when we get close to the date to confirm when exactly Nuclias Hyper will be available. And we'd really appreciate it from yourselves if you're listening to the webinar today. Give it a try and let us know exactly what you think about it. Any feedback that we can take, any improvements, or just to tell us how brilliant it is, we'll listen to all of those pieces. So that's pretty much it for today's webinar. I hope we didn't keep you too long. I hope you appreciated the demo from Phil and the information that we brought to you. As always, contact us on the numbers on screen. UKI-sales@d-link.com is always the preferred method for contacting us. That goes to everybody in the team, as I always say, myself, Mark, our other salespeople, our technical experts. They all get to see those email addresses, so we can pick that up and answer that as a group to make sure you get the best available. So we'll be doing another webinar in a few weeks' time. Stay tuned to our emails to see. We'll be talking about M2M, our new 4G and 5G M2M modems, routers, PoE devices. So that will be coming up in a few weeks as it kind of move into the summer holidays and people are away. So we'll be doing that towards the end of July, but keep your eyes peeled for more webinars coming from D-Link in the near future. Thanks very much for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Perfect.